1. Purple and orange lights violently flashed on and off. Ghostly apparitions crawled across the dirty walls and ceiling, and a group of screaming girls ran frantically down a hall. 13-year-old Mabel Mandal held her phone up to her nose, watching the trailer for Torture Town, Pensacola's premier Halloween haunted house, with a mixture of revulsion and excitement. She couldn't wait to go. However, she and her friends faced a few challenges. For one, the tickets were an insane $65 apiece. More importantly, visitors had to be 16 or older to enter. Mabel wasn't sure she and her friends could pass, but she was willing to take on however much makeup it took to try. A text bubble appeared from her best friend, Archer Abel, partially blocking the Torture Town trailer. "So we need 65? Girl, that's a ton of $$. Mabel replied. "Actually, we need more than that. How much do fake IDs cost?" "WTF. IDK?" Mabel sighed, opened an incognito window on her phone and searched the phrase, "how to get a fake ID." Just then, the door to the bedroom burst open and an angry woman stormed in. It was Mrs. Grace, Mabel's neighbor and employer. She scowled at Mabel as she scooped baby Ben off of the floor where he sat wailing so hard. His face was deep, dark red, and drool flowed like a waterfall down his chin. Mabel had been so absorbed in her phone, she'd practically forgotten she was babysitting. How long had Ben been freaking out like that? Mabel hastily shoved her phone in her back pocket and popped up from her spot on the floor. "Hi, Mrs. Grace. Has it been an hour already?" She feigned clueless innocence, tucking a lock of silky black hair behind one ear. Mrs. Grace wasn't buying it. Mabel understood that it was her job to keep Ben happy, but whatever. Nothing made Ben happy. Mabel had rocked him and danced for him and jiggled his toys in front of him. But the kid could easily hear his concert pianist mother practicing down the hall. There was no way to keep him calm when he knew his mom was a few steps away and would come running if he just cried long and loud enough. To prove the point, as soon as Mrs. Grace had Ben in her arms, the child quieted. He wrapped one chubby hand around his mother's shirt collar, stuffed his other hand in his mouth, and cooed softly. Mrs. Grace sighed. "I couldn't concentrate with all the crying." She pulled a wad of cash out of her pocket and shoved it into Mabel's hand. "Here, just take it and go home." "Cool," Mabel said, cluelessly taking the money. She went to the door, then turned back. "See you Thursday?" "I'll let you know," Mrs. Grace snapped, her voice cracking with tightly bottled frustration. Mabel shrugged and left, walking through the house, out the front door and across the street to her own home. She stopped in front of the dilapidated 2-story rental property to check their mailbox. No surprise. Her mother hadn't checked it in days, so it was stuffed to the brim with mail. Mabel rifled through the junk. Plenty of bills and some coupons, but none for Torture Town. It figured. That place was surely too popular for discounts. On her way to the side door, she passed the garbage can, which was bursting with trash. She shoved the junk mail into the can while holding her breath to avoid the rank odor of rotting meat. Then she dragged the can down to the curb and headed inside. "Sivan? You forgot to take the trash out, again," she called as she entered the house, tossing the bills and coupons atop the kitchen table. From far inside the recesses of the house wafted the sound of her 17-year-old brother's stereo, blasting punk music. There was no way he had heard her. She jogged up the stairs and banged on his bedroom door. "Sivan, open up!" Her tall, older brother, over 6 feet at 17 years old, loomed over her as the door swung open. "Hey, Shivani. What's up?" Mabel hated it when he used her real name. For one thing, she hated how it sounded too much like his name. For another, it reminded her of their dad. And he was no longer around. It's Mabel, Sivan," she protested. Mabel held out an open palm. "Also, I took out the trash for you. Pay up." "What are you talking about?" "You keep forgetting," Mabel said, as she followed him into his room. Sivan turned down the music and flopped onto his bed with his phone, scrolling as he only half listened to Mabel's plea. "Mom pays you $5 for your chores, right? I did it for you, so cough it up. $5. Sivan zoomed in on something Mabel couldn't see and mumbled. "What do you need money for? You're just a kid." "Am not," Mabel insisted. "And none of your business." Sivan peered over his phone at her, squinting. "Do we need to have the sex, drugs, and rock and roll talk?" "Ooh," Mabel winced. "No. And I already know about that stuff anyway." "Oh, yeah? What do you know? What's frogging?" "Frogging has nothing to do with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Pimplebutt." Sivan just laughed. He set down his phone on his messy bed covers. "Okay, fine. But if I'm giving you money, I need to know what you're going to spend it on. I don't want to be an accidental accomplice to a crime." "It's for Halloween," Mabel said cagily. "What are you dressing as this year?" he pressed. "The cocaine bear," Mabel answered. And this much was true. She was planning to wear a bear costume and spread white grease paint around her nose. Sivan burst out laughing. "You better not wear that to school, or they'll suspend you." Mabel crossed her arms. "That sounds better than going to class. Besides, what's the worst that could happen?" "They'll tell Mom," Sivan said. "What's she gonna do? Punish me? It's not like she knows how to set a good example." Sivan's face fell. "Hey, be nice." With that, he rolled off of the bed and went to his dresser where he opened a drawer and pulled a $5 bill out from under some socks. He held it out to Mabel. Mabel reached for it, but he snatched it back and gave her a more serious look. "You can have this, but you have to promise me something." Mabel folded her arms over her chest. "What?" "Promise you won't use this to do something stupid." Mabel crossed her fingers inside her armpit where Sivan couldn't see. "Okay, promise." This time, he held out the money and didn't pull it away when Mabel went to grab it. She immediately turned to leave. "Hey," Sivan called when she reached the threshold. "Just so you know, Mom hasn't paid me to take out the trash in years." Mabel sighed and mumbled under her breath as she walked away. "At least you used to get paid for your chores. Mom always made me work for free."